Super visa versus a normal visitor visa. You have become a permanent resident of Canada, you want to invite your parents over to Canada and you cannot decide which one to apply. Guys, this is the video for you. Welcome back to the channel, guys. In this video, we're going to talk about super visa versus visitor visa, and specifically in which cases is super visa an ideal choice to go for. As a lot of you guys become a permanent resident, next step is to bring your parents over either to visit or to live with you, and thereabouts you need to find out which option is the best for you, what option to go for, and how to decide whether a visitor visa is a good option or a super visa is a good option. In this video, please watch this until the end. We're going to discuss all of this. First, let's talk about the length of stay. Usually on a visitor visa, the applicant or the visitor visa holder is given stay for 6-month period. In most cases it's a 6-month period, and that's the maximum stay. After the expiry of that 6 months, either your parents have to go back to your home country or they can apply for an extension. However, the initial entry is given for 6 months only. In case of a super visa, the entry now is given for 5 years. That means once your parents enter this country in Canada, they can live with you for 5 years. No extensions needed, no need to leave the country. They can stay here, live with you, and that is it. In terms of the specific requirements in a super visa, the way super visa compares to a normal visitor visa is that for a super visa holder, you need to have a health insurance with a minimum coverage of 100,000 Canadian dollars. You should always have this health insurance throughout the duration of stay for your parents. So this is a requirement for super visa. In a normal visitor visa, a health insurance is not required, although everyone will highly recommend having a health insurance because, you know, if you get into trouble, you need to seek medical assistance in Canada. The bills can rack up really quick, and hence having a health insurance is really necessary. On top of the health insurance requirement, a super visa also requires the applicant to undergo an immigration medical exam. So an IME needs to be done as a part of the application. So there is some added cost and work with regards to a super visa. Thirdly, if you're applying for a super visa, you need to meet some income requirements. On the screen, you can see the table. This is a table that lists the family size and the amount of income that you need to have. Now, keep in mind that either you as the child can use your income, and if your income meets the income requirement listed in this table as per your family size, then you're good to go. However, if your individual income does not meet this income requirement, you can also add in your spouse's income. So you can use the notice of assessment for yourself and your spouse. So both of you can be the inviter for your parents, and your spouse can also help bridge that income gap in order to meet the eligibility for super visa. So overall, major differences with regards to the application for super visa versus visitor visa is: number one is the income requirement, number two is the need for a health insurance, number three is the need for medical insurance in terms of a super visa. For a visitor visa, you don't need any of this. However, you still need to be able to prove to the visa officer that your intention is bona fide and that you will return back to the home country after your temporary visit in Canada. Now, as per your individual circumstance, if you want your parents to be here in Canada with you for a long duration, for years at a stretch, then of course super visa is the only route for you. However, if you want your parents to visit you for a month, 2 months, 3 months, to a max of 6 months, then you have both the options open, which is a normal visitor visa or a super visa. Now the question is, why would you choose super visa or visitor visa? Even if this length of stay is less than 6 months, what are the benefits of going for a super visa? Now, a visitor visa application is subject to proofs and is subject to you convincing the visa officer. You as an applicant need to convince the visa officer that you are well established back home, that your intention is very clear to come to Canada for a specific thing, and that you will return back to your home country after your short trip in Canada. Now, all different factors such as your financial situation, your employment situation, your economic situation, all of these play a big factor in deciding whether an officer is gonna grant you a visitor visa or not. Age is another factor that plays a big part. On the other hand, for a super visa, the purpose is for the parent to visit the child or grandchild. So the parent is just going to come to Canada to visit their child. That is the purpose. So you don't need to go extensively telling them about any other purposes. This is a genuine purpose in terms of a super visa application. On top of that, for a super visa, you don't need much proofs to showcase financial establishment, to showcase employment establishment, to showcase that you will indeed return back. And the reason for this is that super visa is meant for you to stay for longer durations, for up to 5 years in a stretch. So that means the IRCC officer knows that the intention is to come and live with your child or grandchild, and hence they look at the application from a different lens. Now, what we recommend is if you've had prior issues with getting a visitor visa approved, or you feel that your visitor visa application file is not very strong, and you meet the requirements in terms of income as a child or grandchild, you have enough income to bring your parents on super visa, then super visa is a great choice. As long as you meet the income requirements and you do the insurance, you do the medical exam, you meet the income requirements, super visa is mostly approved. In most of the cases, you will get an approval. So there's a high approval rate for a super visa. In a normal visitor visa, again, it depends on all those different factors. So it's not very clear, it's very subjective, and it depends on the officer who reviews the application. In our experience, if someone has had issues with getting their prior visitor visa approved, or if their file does not seem to be very good in terms of finances and stuff, we always recommend super visa. It's easier, it's more paperwork, a little more work, but then it has higher chance of approval. So in case you are in that situation where you've had multiple tries on a visitor visa, then super visa is definitely worth consideration, and there is a high chance, 90% chance, that you will be successful through this pathway and you'll have your parents come here in no time. So that's it, guys. I hope this video was helpful. Basically, my intention was to give you a breakdown of TRV, normal visitor visa, versus a super visa, and show you how they both compare to each other. Of course, there is a little more work required in a super visa application. However, the chances of approval outweigh usually the work that is required. In a visitor visa application, it's a little less costly to apply because you don't need to go through medical, you don't need medical insurance. However, again, it depends on what your personal applicant's personal financial situation is, economic situation is, and whether the visa would be granted or not. In the description below, you would see the links to the minimum income requirement for a super visa, and you can see if you meet the minimum income requirement, then you can definitely apply for super visa. I hope this was helpful. I hope this gives you a good understanding of super visa versus a normal visitor visa. If you like this video, don't forget to like it, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.